Sam's world is shattered when he discovers his wife's betrayal, plunging him into a whirlwind of heartbreak and mistrust. Struggling to make sense of his crumbling marriage, Sam embarks on a journey of self-discovery while grappling with anger and doubt. As his wife, Laura, fights to regain his trust, unexpected twists, including the return of the man who disrupted their lives, push their relationship to its breaking point. Can love and resilience overcome the pain of betrayal, or are some wounds too deep to heal? Watch this emotional and gripping tale of trust, forgiveness, and the hard choices that define relationships. It was the spring of 2018 in Cedar Ridge, a picturesque town that seemed like it had been plucked straight from a Hallmark postcard. Neatly trimmed lawns, tree-lined streets, and cozy cafes gave it an air of quiet perfection. For Sam Bennett, life in Cedar Ridge had its ups and downs, a high school math teacher by day, and an amateur guitarist by night. Sam was known around town for his easygoing nature, and a smile that could disarm even the grumpiest student. Sam had been married to Laura for 6 years. She was a marketing executive at a small but thriving agency in town. Laura was the kind of woman who always seemed to have everything together, polished, driven, and charming, in a way that made people naturally gravitate toward her. Together, they seemed like the perfect couple, or at least that's how it appeared to anyone who didn't look too closely. Their relationship wasn't always so complicated. They had met at a mutual friend's dinner party years ago. Sam, with his slightly messy hair and self-deprecating humor, was the perfect contrast to Laura's poised and confident demeanor. They clicked instantly. Within a year, they were married, buying a modest house on Chestnut Lane, and starting their life together. But over the years, something shifted. Laura's job began to demand more of her time, and Sam's passion for music often kept him out late at local gigs. They had become two ships passing in the night, their conversations reduced to logistical updates and the occasional shared joke. Sam noticed the changes in Laura first. She was always glued to her phone, her laughter softer, less frequent. When he asked about her day, she would offer vague, generic answers that left him feeling more like a stranger than a partner. It wasn't that she was overtly cold, just distant, like a once vivid photo slowly fading with time. The first real crack in the facade came during a Friday evening dinner at their favorite Italian restaurant. Sam had made reservations as a surprise, hoping to reignite some spark in their relationship. Laura showed up late, apologizing profusely about a work meeting that ran over. But her smile didn't reach her eyes, and she spent most of the evening glancing at her phone. Sam tried to brush it off. She's stressed, he told himself. Everyone goes through rough patches. But then there was the mysterious client, Derek. Derek was, according to Laura, one of her biggest accounts. He was new to the area, charismatic, and, as Laura put it, an important networking opportunity. Sam had heard the name enough times to memorize it. Derek this, Derek that. At first, Sam didn't think much of it. Laura was ambitious, and she often worked closely with clients. But the frequency of Derek's mentions started to gnaw at him. One evening, Sam casually asked, "So what's Derek like?" Laura hesitated, just for a moment before offering a carefully neutral description. "Oh, he's professional, polished. You'd like him. He's very smart." That hesitation lingered in Sam's mind. It was small, but it was there. A microsecond of discomfort that planted the first seeds of doubt. He didn't say anything at the time, but he started to pay closer attention. A few weeks later, Laura announced she would be attending a weekend team-building retreat, with her colleague Sam, ever supportive, had no reason to suspect otherwise, until he noticed that her suitcase included outfits far more suited to a date than a corporate retreat. "Are you sure this is work-related?" he asked, half joking. Laura smiled, but it felt forced. "Of course you know how these things are. Networking, schmoozing, it's all part of the job." Sam nodded, but couldn't shake the nagging feeling that something wasn't adding up. That weekend, Sam tried to distract himself with yard work, a movie marathon, and a long overdue call with his college buddy, Mark. But no matter how hard he tried, his mind kept drifting back to Laura. Late Saturday night, he noticed her social media had been unusually quiet, a stark contrast to her usual habit of posting photos of every work event. By the time Laura returned on Sunday evening, Sam had convinced himself he was overreacting. She walked through the door looking radiant, almost glowing. She hugged him tightly, the warmth in her embrace catching him off guard. "How was the retreat?" he asked. "It was fine, productive," she replied with a tired smile. But there was something in her eyes, something guarded, like a door just barely cracked open, hiding whatever lay beyond. Over the next few months, Sam tried to push his doubts aside. He threw himself into his music, signed up for more gigs, and even started a new hobby, woodworking. But no matter how busy he kept himself, the unease lingered. Then came the text. It was a rainy Thursday evening, and Laura had left her phone on the kitchen counter while she showered. Sam was cleaning up after dinner when the screen lit up. A message preview flashed across the screen. "Can't stop thinking about last weekend." It was from Derek. Sam froze. For a moment, he told himself it must be a misunderstanding. A joke, maybe. But deep down, he knew his hands trembled as he set the phone back down, his mind racing. When Laura came back downstairs, she greeted him with a casual smile, completely unaware of the storm brewing inside him. "You okay?" she asked, noticing his distracted demeanor. "Yeah," he said, forcing a smile. "Just tired." That night, as Laura slept soundly beside him, Sam lay awake, staring at the ceiling. He didn't confront her right away. Instead, he decided to gather more information. Over the next few days, he paid closer attention. Her late-night calls, the way she tilted her phone screen away from him, the excuses that seemed increasingly flimsy. And then came the evening he couldn't ignore. Sam couldn't shake the feeling that his marriage was teetering on the edge of something he couldn't control. The text message from Derek played on a loop in his mind, each replay tightening the knot in his stomach. But instead of confronting Laura directly, Sam opted for subtlety, at least for now. He needed clarity, confirmation, and most importantly, a plan. The following evening, Sam suggested they go out for dinner. It wasn't unusual for him to make such plans, especially when he was trying to mend what felt like fraying edges in their relationship. Laura agreed, her smile warm but faintly distracted, like she was already elsewhere in her mind. At the restaurant, Sam tried to act normal, asking about her day, joking about the stormy weather outside, but every word felt forced. He couldn't stop scrutinizing her responses. Was she hiding something, or was his paranoia coloring every detail? Midway through dinner, Laura excused herself to take a call. She didn't say who it was, but Sam noticed how quickly she slipped her phone into her bag when she returned. "You seem busy lately," Sam said, keeping his tone casual. "It's just work," Laura replied quickly, sipping her wine. "Things have been hectic with the new client." Sam nodded, but his mind raced. The mention of work now felt like a euphemism for something else. Over the next week, Sam began observing Laura more closely. She had become an expert at deflecting questions, giving just enough detail to avoid suspicion while never quite satisfying his curiosity. And then there was her phone, a device that now felt like a vault, filled with secrets she didn't want him to discover. Late one night, while Laura was asleep, Sam finally gave in to the temptation he'd been resisting for weeks. He reached for her phone, careful not to disturb her. His hands trembled as he unlocked it, the weight of what he might find pressing down on him. Scrolling through her messages, he found exactly what he had feared: conversations with Derek. At first, they seemed harmless enough, mostly about work. But as he scrolled further back, The tone shifted. Flirty banter, inside jokes, and finally, unmistakable hints that their relationship had crossed a line. Sam's heart sank. He set the phone down, staring at Laura as she slept peacefully beside him. How could she betray him like this? The next morning, Sam was quieter than usual. Laura noticed but didn't press him, assuming he was simply tired. But inside, Sam was a storm of anger, sadness, and confusion. Confronting her now felt impossible. He wasn't ready for the fallout. Instead, he turned to someone he could trust. His best friend. Mark over beers at their favorite bar. Sam spilled everything. "So, what are you gonna do?" Mark asked, his brow furrowed with concern. "I don't know," Sam admitted. "Part of me wants to confront her right away, but what if she denies it? What if I've misread everything?" Mark shook his head. "You saw the messages, man. She's not just texting this guy for work. You deserve answers." Sam nodded, but the thought of confronting Laura made his chest tighten. He needed to know more before taking that step. A few days later, Laura mentioned she had a client dinner to attend. Sam tried to act nonchalant, but the pit in his stomach grew as she left the house, dressed in a sleek black dress that he couldn't remember her ever wearing before. He decided to follow her. It wasn't something he was proud of, but desperation had a way of pushing people to their limits. He waited 10 minutes before grabbing his coat and heading out. Parking a few blocks away from the restaurant she had mentioned, Sam spotted her almost immediately. She was sitting at a small candlelit table near the window, and there he was. Derek tall, sharply dressed, and leaning in just a little too closely as he spoke. Sam's heart pounded as he watched them laugh together, their body language unmistakably intimate. It felt like the air had been knocked out of him. He didn't stay long, just long enough to confirm what he already knew. That night, Sam couldn't bring himself to sleep in their bed. Instead, he lay awake on the couch, staring at the ceiling and replaying every moment of their relationship. When had things gone so wrong? Had he missed the signs, or had Laura simply changed into someone he no longer recognized? The next morning, Laura found him in the kitchen, nursing a cup of coffee. "You're up early," she said, her tone light. "Yeah, couldn't sleep," Sam replied, not looking up from his mug. "Everything okay?" He finally met her gaze, and for a moment, he considered laying everything on the table, but the words caught in his throat. "Just a lot on my mind," he said instead. Over the next few weeks, Sam wrestled with his emotions. The betrayal cut deep, but part of him still loved Laura. He wasn't ready to throw everything away without at least trying to understand why this had happened. Finally, one evening, he decided to confront her. As they sat across from each other in the living room, the tension was palpable. "Laura, we need to talk," Sam began, his voice steady but firm. "Okay," she said, setting her phone aside. "I know about Derek," he said, watching her reaction carefully. Her face froze for a moment before she looked away. I don't know what to say," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "How long?" Sam asked, his tone sharper now. "A few months," she said, tears welling in her eyes. Sam felt his chest tighten. "Why, Laura? Why would you do this to us?" "I don't know," she said, her voice breaking. "I've been so unhappy and it just happened. I never wanted to hurt you." "But you did," Sam said, his voice rising. "You destroyed everything we built together. Was it worth it?" Laura didn't answer. Her silence spoke louder than any words could. Sam stood, pacing the room as he tried to process everything. "I gave you everything, Laura. I trusted you." "I'm sorry," she said, her tears falling freely now. "I know I've ruined everything." As the weight of her confession settled over them, The silence was suffocating. Sam didn't know what the future held, but one thing was certain. Things would never be the same. If you've ever found yourself questioning the foundations of a relationship, remember that honesty and communication are key. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel for more stories like this. Because sometimes, the truth is stranger than fiction. Sam's confrontation with Laura marked the beginning of a storm he hadn't anticipated. The confession lingered like a ghost in their home, haunting every room and silencing the laughter that once filled the air. Laura moved into the guest room, and their conversations became strained, punctuated by long, uncomfortable silences. Despite her tears and apologies, Sam struggled to believe her remorse. How could she claim to love him while betraying him with Derek? These thoughts churned in his mind as he tried to focus on work, but nothing seemed to distract him. One evening, a week after their confrontation, Sam found himself scrolling through old photos on his laptop. Pictures of their honeymoon, holidays spent with family, and the countless small moments that had once defined their life together. Each image felt like a stab to his heart. He couldn't reconcile the Laura in those photos with the woman she had become. Then, Laura dropped another bombshell. "I think we need some time apart," she said. One night after dinner, her voice was steady, but her eyes were filled with regret. "I don't want to rush into anything, but I think we both need space to figure out what we really want." Sam's jaw tightened. "What I want is a wife who doesn't cheat on me." Laura flinched, but she didn't argue. "I know I've hurt you, and I don't expect you to forgive me. I need to sort out my feelings, and I think you do too." Sam felt the air leave his lungs. He had been bracing for this, but hearing her say it made it real. "So what does this mean? Are you leaving?" "I'll stay with my sister for a while," Laura said softly. "Just for a few weeks, maybe longer, if that's what we need." Sam nodded, too angry and heartbroken to argue. The next morning, Laura packed a suitcase and left, leaving Sam alone in the house they had built together. For the first few days, the silence was unbearable. Sam wandered from room to room, unsure of what to do with himself. But as the days turned into weeks, he began to rediscover pieces of himself he had forgotten. He started spending more time at the gym, pushing himself harder than ever before. He reached out to old friends he hadn't spoken to in years, reconnecting with people who reminded him of the person he used to be. He even signed up for an open mic night at a local bar, dusting off his guitar and pouring his emotions into his music. Meanwhile, Laura's absence wasn't just a break for Sam. It was a chance for her to confront her own mistakes. Staying with her sister Emily offered her a fresh perspective. Emily didn't hold back, challenging Laura on her choices and forcing her to take a hard look at what she had done. "You don't just fall into an affair, Laura," Emily said bluntly one evening. "You made a choice, and now you're dealing with the consequences." Laura nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I know I messed up. I just don't know if Sam will ever forgive me." "Do you want him to?" Emily asked. Laura hesitated. "I don't know. Part of me thinks he deserves better than me, but another part of me—" She trailed off, her voice breaking. "I still love him." Emily sighed. "Then you need to figure out what you're willing to do to fix this. Because right now, it sounds like you're just waiting for him to make the decision for you." As weeks turned into a month, Sam and Laura's lives continued to diverge, but neither of them could shake the feeling that their story wasn't finished yet. Then came the night. Everything came to a head. Sam was performing at a small bar downtown, pouring his heart into a song he had written about betrayal and loss. The crowd was small but attentive, and for the first time in weeks, Sam felt a glimmer of peace. As he finished his set, he glanced toward the back of the room and froze. Laura was there, standing near the door with tears in her eyes. After the show, She approached him cautiously, as if afraid he might turn her away. "Can we talk?" she asked softly. Sam nodded, though his guard was up. They found a quiet corner of the bar, and Laura took a deep breath before speaking. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," she began. "About us, about what I did, and why I did it. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I need you to know that I'm sorry. Truly, deeply sorry." Sam listened silently, his emotions swirling. "I know I broke your trust," Laura continued, "and I don't blame you if you never want to see me again, but I needed to tell you that I want to fix this. I want to fix us." Sam's jaw tightened. "You want to fix us now after everything you've done?" Laura nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I know it's too late to undo the pain I've caused, but I still love you, Sam, and I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make things right." Sam stared at her, his heart aching. Part of him wanted to believe her, to cling to the hope that they could rebuild what had been shattered. But another part of him couldn't forget the betrayal, the nights spent wondering how things had gone so wrong. "Do you have any idea how hard it's been for me?" he said, his voice trembling. "How many nights I've spent lying awake, wondering what I did wrong, wondering if I wasn't enough for you." "You were always enough," Laura said, her voice breaking. "This wasn't about you, Sam. It was about me, and my own selfishness. I know I don't deserve a second chance, but I'm asking for one anyway." The room seemed to hold its breath as Sam wrestled with his emotions. Finally, he spoke. "I don't know if I can ever trust you again," he said honestly. "But if we're going to try, it's going to take time, a lot of time." Laura nodded, her eyes filled with both hope and sorrow. "I understand, and I'm willing to do whatever it takes." Their conversation marked a turning point, but it was only the beginning of a long and difficult journey. Life isn't a fairy tale, and rebuilding trust isn't easy. But sometimes, the hardest roads lead to the most meaningful destinations. For anyone who's been through the pain of betrayal, remember this. Healing takes time, and it's okay to put yourself first. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel for more stories that remind us of the resilience of the human spirit. Sam's cautious agreement to try rebuilding his relationship with Laura marked a shift in their story, but it was far from the resolution. If anything, it was the beginning of the most turbulent chapter yet. Their first attempts at communication felt awkward and stilted. Conversations that once flowed freely were now mined with landmines of distrust and suppressed anger. Laura, for her part, was determined to prove she was serious about mending their broken bond. She started attending therapy sessions on her own and suggested they try couples counseling. Sam agreed, but the sessions only seemed to magnify the chasm between them. During one particularly heated session, the therapist asked Laura to explain why she had cheated. "It wasn't about him," Laura said hesitantly. "It was about me, I felt. Invisible. Like I was failing at everything. Work, marriage, being a good partner. Derek gave me attention, and I made the mistake of leaning on that instead of confronting what I was feeling with Sam." Sam's face hardened. "You could have talked to me," he said, his voice tinged with bitterness. "Instead, you went to him." "I know," Laura replied, tears welling in her eyes. "And I hate myself for it." The therapist interjected, guiding them through their emotions. But it was clear that rebuilding trust would be a slow and painful process. Outside the therapy sessions, life continued to test them. Sam found himself withdrawing emotionally, not out of anger, but out of self-preservation. He started spending more time with his bandmates and exploring new opportunities for gigs. Music had become his sanctuary, a place where he could channel his pain and confusion into something productive. Meanwhile, Laura's efforts to regain his trust were earnest but often clumsy. She tried cooking his favorite meals, planning small outings, and even leaving him little notes around the house. but each gesture felt hollow to Sam, like a bandage on a wound that hadn't fully been cleaned. The turning point came one night when Sam discovered something that changed everything. Again. Laura had left her laptop open in the living room. Sam wasn't trying to snoop, but an email notification popped up that caught his attention. It was from Derek. His heart sank as he opened the message. The email wasn't romantic, but it was personal enough to make his stomach churn. Derek was apologizing for causing trouble and asking Laura if they could meet to talk things through. Sam felt a rush of anger. Had Laura been in contact with Derek this entire time? Was her promise to rebuild their marriage just a facade? When Laura returned home that evening, Sam confronted her. "Why is Derek emailing you?" he demanded, holding up her laptop. Laura's face went pale. "Sam, I haven't responded to him. I didn't even know he emailed me." "Then why didn't you tell me he reached out?" Sam's voice was rising now, frustration bubbling to the surface. "You said you wanted to fix this, Laura. How am I supposed to believe that when you're still keeping secrets?" "I wasn't keeping secrets," Laura said, her voice trembling. "I didn't think it mattered because I have no intention of talking to him. I didn't want to bring it up and upset you." "Well, congratulations," Sam shot back. "Mission not accomplished." The argument escalated, both of them hurling accusations and airing grievances that had been simmering beneath the surface for months. By the end of the night, Laura was in tears, and Sam was packing a bag. "I need some space," he said, his voice cold. "I can't do this right now." Laura didn't stop him. She watched in silence as he grabbed his things and left. For the next week, Sam stayed at Mark's place, trying to sort through his emotions. Mark, ever the voice of reason, offered his perspective. "Man, you're allowed to feel hurt," Mark said. "But you need to decide what you really want. Are you staying with her because you think you can fix things, or because it's easier than starting over?" Sam didn't have an answer. He spent hours replaying their fights in his mind, trying to pinpoint the moment when everything had gone off the rails. Meanwhile, Laura was dealing with her own inner turmoil. Losing Sam, even temporarily, forced her to confront the full weight of her actions. She doubled down on therapy, pouring her heart out in sessions that left her emotionally drained, but more self-aware. She even reached out to Derek, but not to rekindle anything. Instead, she sent a clear, final message. "Do not contact me again. I'm working on my marriage, and I need you to respect that." When Sam returned home, it wasn't with a resolution, but with a tentative willingness to try again. Laura greeted him with cautious optimism, but there was no celebration. They both knew this was their last chance. The real breakthrough came during one of their therapy sessions, when the therapist asked Sam a simple but profound question. "What do you need from Laura to begin to heal?" Sam hesitated before answering. "I need honesty complete, brutal honesty. I can't deal with half-truths or omissions anymore, and I need her to show me, not just tell me, that I matter to her." Laura nodded, her expression serious. "I can do that," she said. "I will do that." And slowly, painfully, she began to prove it. She shared her therapy notes with Sam, inviting him into her journey of self-discovery. She made a point to include him in her daily life, asking for his input and showing genuine interest in his passions. And perhaps most importantly, she stopped trying to fix everything with grand gestures. Instead, she focused on the small, consistent actions that rebuild trust over time. Sam, for his part, began to let his guard down, little by little. He started sharing his music with Laura again, playing her songs he had written during their separation. And while it wasn't easy, he made an effort to acknowledge her progress and express his own vulnerabilities. The road was far from smooth. They still fought, still faced moments of doubt and pain. But for the first time in a long time, they were fighting together, not against each other. As they approached their anniversary, Sam and Laura decided to spend the day reflecting on their journey. They took a long drive to the beach, where they had spent their first vacation as a couple. Sitting on the sand, watching the waves crash against the shore, they talked about everything: the good, the bad, and the hope they still had for the future. "Do you think we'll ever be okay again?" Laura asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know," Sam admitted, "but I think we're on the right track, and that's a start." For anyone out there facing challenges in love and trust, remember that healing is a journey, not a destination. It takes patience, effort, and a willingness to face the hard truths. If this story resonated with you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel for more real-life recaps that remind us of the power of resilience. As Sam and Laura cautiously navigated their reconciliation, the tension between them remained a constant undercurrent. Each step forward felt like a test, each small victory shadowed by the lingering fear that one misstep could unravel everything they were working toward. Yet, they both knew that the path to healing was paved with discomfort and honesty. One evening, during what had become their routine of sitting together after dinner, Laura brought up an idea that would push them both into unfamiliar territory. "I've been thinking," she began hesitantly. "Maybe we should try a reset. Something that takes us away from here, away from the reminders of everything that's happened." Sam raised an eyebrow. "A reset?" "Yeah," Laura said. "Like a weekend getaway. No phones, no distractions, just us. It could be a chance to reconnect without all the noise." Sam hesitated. The idea of spending a weekend alone with Laura in close quarters felt both intriguing and terrifying. "Where were you thinking?" "There's this cabin upstate," Laura said, a faint smile touching her lips. "It's where my parents used to take us when we needed to escape. I thought it might be a good place to start fresh." Sam nodded slowly. "All right. Let's do it." The drive to the cabin was quiet, but not uncomfortable. They made small talk about the scenery, the playlist Laura had put together, and memories of family trips. For the first time in a long while, the conversation felt easy, like a flicker of the connection they used to share. When they arrived, the cabin was just as Laura had described: cozy and secluded, surrounded by towering trees and the soothing sounds of nature. As they unpacked, Laura's nervous energy was palpable. Sam, though apprehensive, found himself appreciating the simplicity of the setting. That evening, as they sat by the fire, Laura broke the silence. "I know this doesn't fix everything," she said, staring into the flames. "But I want you to know how much I appreciate you being here. It means a lot." Sam nodded, his gaze fixed on the fire. "I'm here because I want to see if we can find a way forward. But I need to be honest. I'm still not sure if I can trust you completely." Laura swallowed hard, her voice steady despite the tears in her eyes. "I understand. And I'll keep doing whatever it takes to prove to you that I'm committed to us." The next day, they spent their time hiking through the woods, sharing stories and moments of quiet reflection. The natural beauty of the surroundings seemed to ease some of the tension between them, allowing for small glimpses of the companionship they once knew. But the breakthrough came on their second night at the cabin. As they sat on the porch, watching the stars, Sam finally opened up about the depth of his hurt. "You know, it's not just about what you did," he said quietly. "It's about how it made me question everything: my self-worth, our marriage, even my ability to trust people in general." Laura listened intently, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. "I know I broke something in you, Sam. And I hate myself for that. But I need you to know that what I did had nothing to do with you. It was my own insecurity, my own selfishness, and I hate that it took losing you to see it clearly." Sam looked at her, his expression softening. "I've spent so much time being angry. At you, at Derek, at myself. But being here, away from everything. I think I'm starting to realize that I don't want to carry that anger anymore. It's exhausting. Laura reached for his hand, her touch tentative. Does that mean you're ready to forgive me? Sam hesitated, searching her eyes. I'm ready to start trying, but forgiveness isn't a switch you flip. It's a process, just like rebuilding trust. Laura nodded, a tear slipping down her cheek. I'll wait as long as it takes. That moment marked a shift in their dynamic. While far from a resolution, it was the first time they both felt a genuine sense of hope for the future. Back in Cedar Ridge, the challenges of daily life quickly resurfaced, testing the fragile progress they had made at the cabin. But this time, their approach was different. Instead of avoiding difficult conversations, they tackled them head-on. Instead of retreating into their own corners, they leaned into the discomfort. One of the most significant turning points came when Sam received an unexpected offer. A friend of his from the music scene, who had moved to a neighboring city, reached out about joining a new band. It was an exciting opportunity, but it would require more of Sam's time and involve frequent travel. When he brought it up to Laura, he braced for resistance. To his surprise, she encouraged him. You should go for it, she said, her voice filled with genuine enthusiasm. You've always loved music, and this sounds like something that could be really good for you. But what about us? Sam asked, his concern evident. We'll figure it out, Laura said firmly. We're stronger than we were a few months ago. I trust that we can handle this. Her words carried weight, a sign of the growth she had undergone since their reconciliation began. For the first time, Sam felt like she was putting his happiness on equal footing with her own. The climax of their journey came during an impromptu celebration of their anniversary, which they had originally planned to skip. Laura surprised Sam by recreating the meal from their first date, complete with the same cheesy playlist they had laughed about all those years ago. As they sat together, sharing stories and sipping wine, Sam felt a wave of emotion he hadn't experienced in months. It wasn't just love. It was a sense of possibility, of a future that didn't feel weighed down by the past. Laura, he said, his voice steady but filled with emotion. I don't know what the future holds for us, but I want to keep trying. I want to believe that we can come out of this stronger than we were before. Laura reached across the table, taking his hand in hers. I believe that too, and I'll spend the rest of my life proving it to you. The room fell into a comfortable silence, the kind that speaks louder than words. For those of you who've followed Sam and Laura's story, let it be a reminder that relationships aren't about perfection. They're about resilience. It takes time, effort, and a willingness to confront the hard truths to rebuild something that's been broken. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel for more stories like this. Stories that remind us of the strength it takes to heal, grow, and move forward. Sam and Laura's fragile progress faced its biggest test when an unexpected visitor arrived in Cedar Ridge. Derek. Sam first heard about Derek's return from Mark, who texted him late one afternoon. Guess who I just saw at the coffee shop? Your favorite guy, Derek. Sam's chest tightened. Derek had become a ghost in their lives, a name that carried weight but had no physical presence. The idea of him being back in town made Sam's stomach churn. He didn't know what Derek wanted, but the timing felt far from coincidental. Sam debated whether to tell Laura. Part of him wanted to keep this information to himself, but he knew that withholding it would only breed more mistrust. That evening, as they sat down for dinner, he brought it up. Mark saw Derek today, Sam said, watching Laura's reaction closely. Her fork paused mid-air, and her eyes widened slightly before she composed herself. He's in town? Looks like it, Sam said, his tone neutral but firm. Do you have any idea why? Laura shook her head quickly. No, I haven't spoken to him since I told him not to contact me. Sam nodded, his jaw tightening. If he reaches out to you again, I need to know no secrets. I promise, Laura said, reaching for his hand. You'll be the first to know. The tension lingered between them that night, but Laura's reassurance felt genuine. Still, Sam couldn't shake the unease that had settled over him. 2 days later, Sam spotted Derek himself. He was downtown, walking out of a bookstore with a coffee in hand, looking completely at ease. Sam froze, his instincts screaming at him to avoid confrontation. But as Derek turned and locked eyes with him, avoidance was no longer an option. Derek approached with a small, seemingly friendly smile. Sam, right? Sam's muscles tensed, but he kept his expression neutral. Yeah. Look, Derek began, holding up a hand as if to ward off any hostility. I know I'm probably the last person you want to see, but I think we should talk. Sam's jaw clenched. What could we possibly have to talk about? I'm not here to cause trouble, Derek said quickly. I just wanted to clear the air. What happened with Laura? It was a mistake, and I regret it. I didn't come back to Cedar Ridge to stir things up. I'm here for work, nothing more. Sam narrowed his eyes, searching for any hint of deception. If that's true, then stay out of our lives. We're trying to move forward, and we don't need you dragging us back. Derek nodded, his expression somber. Fair enough. For what it's worth, I'm sorry for the pain I caused. I hope you two can work things out. Sam said nothing, his silence a clear dismissal. Derek took the hint and walked away, leaving Sam standing on the sidewalk, his emotions a tangled mess of anger, distrust, and something he didn't want to admit. Relief. When Sam told Laura about the encounter, her reaction was a mix of shock and guilt. He approached you? She asked, her voice filled with concern. Yeah, Sam said. He claims he's here for work and that he regrets everything. He even apologized. Laura looked down, her hands twisting nervously. Do you believe him? Sam hesitated. I don't know. But it doesn't matter. As long as he stays out of our lives, I don't care what he does. Laura nodded, but the encounter left a lingering unease between them. Derek's presence in town felt like a storm cloud hanging over their fragile progress, threatening to break at any moment. The breaking point came a week later. Laura had gone to a networking event at a local hotel, one she had assured Sam was strictly professional. Sam stayed home, trying to focus on his music, but his unease grew as the evening stretched on. When Laura finally returned, she seemed flustered, her normally composed demeanor replaced with something that looked suspiciously like panic. Everything okay? Sam asked, his voice carefully neutral. Laura hesitated, her eyes darting away. Yeah, it was just a long night. Sam's stomach dropped. He knew that look. He had seen it before, back when she was hiding her affair. Laura, he said, his tone sharper now. What's going on? She froze, guilt flashing across her face. Derek was there. The words hit Sam like a punch to the gut. What? I didn't know he'd be there, Laura said quickly. I swear I didn't. He came up to me during the event, but I walked away. I didn't engage. Sam stared at her, his mind racing. And you didn't think to tell me as soon as you got home? I was going to, Laura said, her voice trembling. I didn't want to upset you. Sam laughed bitterly, shaking his head. Well, congratulations, you failed. The argument that followed was their most intense, yet Sam's anger boiled over, fueled by months of suppressed pain and mistrust. Laura, for her part, tried to explain herself, but her words felt hollow in the face of Sam's fury. I can't keep doing this, Sam said finally, his voice breaking. I can't keep wondering if there's something you're not telling me. If I can't trust you completely, then what's the point? Laura's eyes filled with tears, her desperation evident. Sam, please, I'm telling you the truth. I didn't want to hurt you. That's why I didn't tell you right away. But I promise, nothing happened. Sam turned away, his shoulders slumping. I need time to think. For the next few days, Sam avoided Laura, throwing himself into his music and spending long hours at the gym. Laura, meanwhile, gave him space, terrified that she had pushed him too far this time. When they finally sat down to talk, the conversation was raw and unfiltered. I don't know if I can do this anymore, Sam admitted. Every time I start to believe we're making progress, something happens to drag us back to square one. I know, Laura said, her voice barely above a whisper. But I don't want to give up on us, Sam. I love you, and I'll keep fighting for us, even if it takes the rest of my life. Sam looked at her, his expression weary but conflicted. Love isn't enough, Laura, trust is. And right now I don't know if I'll ever be able to trust you again. Laura nodded, tears streaming down her face. Then I'll wait. I'll wait as long as it takes. Their conversation marked a pivotal moment. While it didn't resolve their issues, it set the stage for what was to come, a choice that would define their future, one way or another. For those of you who followed this story, remember, relationships are complicated, messy, and often painful, but they can also be a source of growth, strength, and transformation. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel for more real-life stories that explore the highs and lows of the human experience. Sam and Laura's relationship had been tested, stretched, and battered. The storm of betrayal, mistrust, and raw emotion had taken them both to their breaking point. Yet, as the dust began to settle, both were left with a decision: to part ways and leave the past behind, or to fight, one last time, for what they had built together. The pivotal moment came during one of their counseling sessions. After weeks of painful conversations and emotional revelations, their therapist posed a question that neither of them could ignore. If the two of you were to let go of all the anger, guilt, and fear, what would be left? What is it that you want most, not for each other, but for yourselves? Sam was the first to answer. I want peace, he said quietly. I want to stop feeling like I'm trapped in this endless loop of hurt. I want to find a version of myself I can be proud of again. Laura nodded, her own emotions bubbling to the surface. I want to be the kind of person who deserves a second chance. I want to prove, to Sam and to myself, that I can be better. Their therapist leaned back, her expression calm but expectant. Then that's where we start. Not by trying to fix the relationship, but by fixing yourselves. Over the next few months, Sam and Laura began to focus less on the we and more on the me. Sam threw himself into his music, taking the offer to join the new band and traveling for gigs. The time away gave him clarity, allowing him to reconnect with the parts of himself he had lost during the chaos of their marriage. He started journaling, reflecting on what he wanted his future to look like, whether it included Laura or not. Laura, meanwhile, continued her therapy sessions, diving deep into the insecurities and patterns that had led to her affair. She joined a support group for women working to rebuild trust in their relationships, finding comfort and accountability among others who had made similar mistakes. She also volunteered at a local shelter, channeling her need for redemption into helping others. The physical distance between them allowed for an emotional reset. Their communication, though limited, became more honest. Sam would call after a gig to share how it went, and Laura would text him updates on her progress. These moments were small, but significant, like tiny stitches in a wound that was slowly healing. The real turning point came 6 months later, when Sam returned to Cedar Ridge for a holiday break. He hadn't seen Laura in person since leaving for the band, and the thought of facing her again filled him with a mix of apprehension and curiosity. When he arrived at their house, it felt different. Laura had redecorated. Nothing drastic, but enough to make the space feel lighter, Less weighed down by their shared history, she greeted him at the door with a nervous smile, and for the first time in a long while, Sam noticed how much she had changed. She looked more grounded, more at peace. There was no trace of the guilt-ridden woman he had left behind, only someone who had clearly done the hard work of healing. They spent the evening talking, really talking. Laura shared what she had learned about herself, the mistakes she had made, and the person she was striving to become. Sam listened, his defenses slowly lowering as he realized she wasn't just saying what he wanted to hear. She was speaking her truth. "I don't expect us to go back to the way things were," Laura said finally. "But I'd like to think we could start over. Not as husband and wife, but as two people who still care about each other and want to see where this could go." Sam nodded, his own emotions bubbling to the surface. "I don't know what the future holds, Laura, but I think I'm ready to find out." Their journey back to each other was slow and deliberate. They started as friends, rebuilding their connection. One conversation, one shared moment at a time. Sam continued his work with the band, while Laura pursued new hobbies and friendships. They didn't rush into anything, allowing their relationship to evolve naturally. A year after their initial separation, they found themselves back at the cabin, where they had first begun to heal. Sitting by the fire, watching the stars, Sam reached for Laura's hand. "You know," he said, his voice soft, "I never thought we'd get here." "Neither did I," Laura admitted, squeezing his hand gently. "But I'm glad we did." For the first time in years, they shared a quiet laugh, the kind that came from a place of genuine joy and understanding. By the end of their story, Sam and Laura weren't the same people they had been when it began. They were stronger, wiser, and more aware of what it took to make a relationship work. Their journey had been messy, painful, and far from perfect, but it had also been transformative. For those of you watching, let this story serve as a reminder that growth often comes from our darkest moments. Whether it's rebuilding trust, finding forgiveness, or learning to let go, the hardest paths can lead to the most rewarding destinations. If you've enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel. Your support means the world, and I can't wait to share more real-life stories that inspire, challenge, and move us all. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.